My mind tends to travel. I must have been maybe 3 years old. There was a storm going on. They start banging on the front door and boom, kicks it in. 2 people came in. They were angry. They were looking for my older brother. I was on the tricycle. One of them grabs me by the hair. I'm on my back. I froze. I'm scared. He has a sugarcane stalk. Boom, boom, right? And I remember going whoop, 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 like I'm falling down forever. All of a sudden, I'm gliding over the sky. And I could see the dogs barking, and I could see little huts and little lights. And I land. I start running. I go and I open the sliding door. And people are there training what I know now is karate. I didn't know back then. And they go, come train. Originally, karate, the kanji, it meant Chinese hand. Okinawan karate, combination of the te, the Okinawan hand, and kung fu. Kimo Wall is one of the most knowledgeable GIs that was stationed in Okinawa. He trained Kobudo under Matayoshi Chimpo. Kimo used to say I was a freak. I trained 8 hours every day. I literally would wear Kimo Wall out. After 6 months, Kimo Wall was like, he came out with a belt, threw it at me. He says, there, you're a black belt. I can't teach you anymore. You already learned everything. After training, no matter what ugly feeling was in my mind, it was gone after that. There was a great master a long time ago, before it was called karate in Okinawa. He called it dosen, which means moving sen.
Good to see you, Sensei Benavides.
Good to see you. Good to see you. It's been a long time.
How long? I mean, probably, so I'm 28 now.
And you were about 6 at the time?
5 or 6. So this is 22, 23 years ago.
23 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, so you were technically my first martial arts instructor. I started here in Kuksul at 10, but when I was 5, me, my brother, we trained with you, and you're still teaching people, right?
Yes, I still do. It's change, right? Everything has to have change. Then if you don't grow, you know?
How has it changed?
I've opened my mind to a lot of things that I would have never done before because that's the way I was taught. This way only, you know what I mean? But I realized that if you keep a closed mind, you never improve.
That's very true. Where'd you grow up? Where are you from originally?
I am from Texas. Grew up in a border town called Brownsville, Texas, next to Matamoros, Mexico. Yeah. I came here when I was about 16, in 1969. Yeah.
Where in Mexico is your family from?
We're not from Mexico. The Benavides, my family, are the ones who help Texas gain its independence with money, food, land. When Texas gained its independence, they were exiled from Texas and everything was taken from them. There's a small town in Texas named after our family, Benavides.
So your family's been
I remember my dad going to court for many years trying to get, it never happened. Well, what happened, Texas became an independent nation first, right? With the help of the Benavides, who were one of the ones. And the reason the Benavides family wanted to do that is because they knew that General Santana was going to sell everything. And they didn't want to be, history.
Yeah. So you moved to California, it's Orange County?
Yes. Originally to LA County, the city of Norwalk, but we were there only for a little while, and then we moved to Santa Ana. I was 16 at the time. That was in 1969.
So how did you get involved in martial arts then?
Very, very strange. I never really needed martial arts. As a matter of fact, I used to look at martial arts and go, I'll pick up a brick and I'll take you down, honestly. But one day I went to get a haircut down Santa Ana, 4th Street, and I heard a really beautiful music. I follow it, and that's where I met my teacher, Kimo Wall, who was in Okinawa. He trained with Matayoshi and Seiko Higa, the Higa family, and all those people that were involved at that time. So the music I'm looking at, I had never seen karate that way. He's doing a form with music really soft, and it was Hakusuro no Mai, and he's moving, and it looks so beautiful. And then the music stopped, and then he rolls and hits the floor, and the whole floor shook, because it was a wooden floor, right? And I go, that's what I want to learn. So I said, hey, I want to sign up. And that was the start.
So what exactly is Okinawan karate?
Okinawan karate, combination of the te, the Okinawan hand, and kung fu. Okinawa used to trade with China and with Japan, so there was always an exchange of not only merchandise, but culture exchange, right? Originally, karate, the kanji, meant Chinese hand. But when Okinawa was looking, I believe, when they were looking to get it recognized by the Japanese government as part of their sports, like judo and
Kendo.
the kendo, they changed it. So the kanji changed to open hand, empty hand. Empty hand.
So Okinawan karate, it has a mix between sort of the southern style Chinese martial arts. Was a white crane, I believe, that ended up going to
Well,
Okinawa.
it has that, but it also has other systems too. It's not only the white crane. There was some other kung fu systems and some other Chinese masters that came to Okinawa to exchange, but they also had their own form of martial arts, te, They had something called tuite also. Tuite is grappling, right? Holds,
So you would say those are native to Okinawa?
Yeah, some of it is, and then the katas, the systems, the movements, a lot of them are from Chinese kung fu.
Okay. Yeah.
I couldn't really tell you what the specific Chinese kung fu, because I imagine there were several, and some we never even heard of, right?
Very interesting. So you end up getting exposed to this martial art, was it probably in the 1970s, correct?
In the 70s, yeah, right around 70, 71.
Okay. So what was your experience training? What was the training like? What was your teacher like? What was that whole process during that time?
Kimo Wall was one of the most knowledgeable GIs that was stationed in Okinawa. He trained Kobudo under Matayoshi Chimpo. And he married Matayoshi's niece, Reiko, who was a very good friend of mine. And he practiced GojuRyu, which is one of the oldest, most traditional systems in Okinawa, under Seiko Higa and his family. And Seiko Higa was a student of Miyagi, but also of Higashiona, who was a teacher to Seiko Higa and Shojun Miyagi, who is considered the founder of GojuRyu. So he was up there. He was also lucky to train under Taguchi Sensei. Taguchi Sensei was another individual that was just brilliant. He developed more forms, basic forms. At first, everybody criticized his forms. He developed bunkais that were what we call rensoko bunkais, continuous. And at first, everybody frowned at them, but now they're widely accepted. So he was there, and he never left the arts. He was always traveling to go see more. He went to China to, see what was there, and he was a great master.
So Kimo Wall came to the U.S., or came back to the U.S.
Yeah.
And he opened a school. You were training with him. As far as day-to-day training, what was that like? What was your training like?
My training. Kimo used to say I was a freak. I trained 8 hours every day. I literally would wear Kimo Wall out. After 6 months, Kimo Wall was like, he came out with a belt. threw it at me and says, "There, you're a black belt. I can't teach you anymore. You already learned everything." Kimo Wall and his wife lived in the dojo. They lived in the dojo, and then eventually I became, it's like I was always there, so I move in. Back then, GojuRyu only had originally 12 katas, plus Kimo Wall added the 5 that Taguchi had practiced, and we did the bunkais and the kiso komite. What is a bunkai? A bunkai is the analysis of the kata, the form. Why are you moving certain ways, and what does it mean? Kiso komite are prearranged sets so that you can become faster and stronger. There's a Rensoko bunkai, which is a continuous form of one kata being done continuous without stopping. And then there's something, some people call it oyo. It's good enough, but we used to call it kaisai kumite. Every kata is little bunkais put together. That's what they are. Little set of bunkais put together to make a beautiful dance.
There's a book that people can reference for Okinawan karate, Ubishi.
Oh, that's the old, you can, some of it is still, but remember, fighting styles are different now than they were back then. And when the Bubushi was written, it was written for the older fighting styles. So yeah, there's things that are still relevant and good to practice, but there's things that are just historical. History means a lot. When I train, I swear, I hear this boom, boom, rhythm. So when I really want to do something strong, it's boom, 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 right? It's like it comes out. And that teaches you. You know what I mean? History teaches you that all of this is important, but always listen to yourself. Feel what feels good. What feels good for me might not feel good for you. Right? My way of doing something might be different because of my body structure. I'm small. Everybody tells you, this is the original form. There is no original form except for the individual who originally developed it, right? Because everything changes. And bunkai is the application. There's more than one bunkai to everything. It depends how a person attacks you. It depends on your body size, your weight, your height, right? The way you move. I've always been small. I think when I started martial arts, I think I weighed 102 pounds. But I was quick. I was really quick. So I had to use that to my advantage.
So did you get into any fights when you were training?
Oh, I've always gotten fights. My brother and I, since we were in Texas, we would pick on adults. That's why I tell you I never looked at it as martial arts for fighting. I always looked at it at its beauty and more than anything, how it made me feel. After training really hard, no matter what ugly feeling was in my mind, it was gone after that. And there was a great master a long time ago. He chose to call, before it was called karate in Okinawa, he called it dosen, which means moving sen. That's why I trained. Yeah, I got in fights, and I used some of the Goju technique in my fights afterwards. Before and after. Before it was just nobody was gonna touch me, Even if they defeated them, I would come back and catch them by surprise. That's the way it was. A person who's trying to really hurt you, if he's intelligent, he's not going to come up to you and face you if you're a bigger man. He's going to catch you by surprise. And it's still the way it is now, right? But when I started doing GojuRyu, some of the movements, I understood them right away, and I could see how that worked. They still work today. Not everything, right? But it's just you can't really do true Goju technique in a sport because you're really going to hurt somebody. I mean, You will understand after I demonstrate with you. You're really going to hurt somebody. But those are old-time techniques that the meaning is not really taught until you're a while in martial arts, so where you can control yourself.
You're famous for Kobudo, right?
I'm very well known in Kobudo and somehow not known because people choose not to share what my knowledge, right? There's always a jealousy involved, and then people might tell you it's not jealousy, it's jealousy, I'm sure some is maybe not understanding, but I teach a lot of Kobudo. Before me, there was only what they call Koryo katas. Koryo meaning classical. Shushi no kun, Shishi no kun, Sakagawa no kun, Shio no kun, are all classical forms. Many years ago, I developed in Kobudo Kihon katas, basic katas. And everybody kind of like, well, who are you? Or you think you're Miyagi? You think you're whoever? I'm not, I'm me. But if you look at Miyagi, before Miyagi and some of those teachers, there was only classical katas in karate. And they developed basic katas to help teach, right? To develop a better teaching. Not only do I have the basic katas in karate, I also have ranking from 10th kyu all the way to shodan. That was not in the system. It was just, if you go to competitions now, you're either beginner, intermediate, or advanced. But there is no ranking like in karate. I developed that and included certain subjects for that. At one time, I had 107 katas. People who see this and hear this for a time, they go, this guy's crazy. I did. Now I only have 55 Kobudo katas in my system. I hope one day one of my students is capable enough to do better than I did, right? Mm-hmm. That's my job. My job is to make one of my students better than me. But in martial arts, I see a lot of, no, this is the only way, because to me, that's choosing to control you. The teacher controlling you, my students. This is what I teach you in the class. This is the way we do. But when we demonstrate or we go compete, I want you to work on something different. I'll look at it. If I don't think I'll let you know, but you decide. Any development of any movement must have a reason. You cannot just do a movement and it doesn't mean nothing. It just looks pretty. There has to be application. So if I see application in that movement, it's a good movement, right? And this is the way we grow. This is the way we get better.
So what made you drawn to Kobudo in the first place? Because sometimes I think people overlook the traditional weapons. Like, how does this apply to modern day?
Well, now, let's look at Kobudo. Kobudo actually means ancient martial arts. Budo, martial arts. Ko, ancient. If you look at the kanji. People get really funny. I called one Japanese instructor here, and he was Japanese. He wasn't Okinawan. There's been a lot of racism between a long time ago. Now it's getting better, from the Japanese people towards the Okinawans. They consider them less than them, just like Mexicans here, right? So I asked him, do you guys teach Kobudo? What do you mean? What do you mean? I go, do you teach Kobudo? Well, what do you mean by Kobudo? I go, well, the weapons. Well, you don't know what you're talking about. Kobudo in Japanese means ancient weapons or ancient martial arts. Well, that's why the Okinawans called it Kobudo, because weapons were the ancient martial arts before open hand, and they might be wrong, right? There's still argument, but they consider the weapons, the sword, the spear, those were the ancient weapons. Well, the Okinawans turned it into something else, right? Because they started using a lot of farm implements to be used against the sword, right? And then those became the weapons of Okinawa, Kobudo, I chose to do it because that's what my teacher was teaching me, and I loved it, right? Kimo Wall and I and a young man, well, he's a little bit younger than me now. He's not younger anymore, named Danny Steagall. Danny Steagall was amazing. To me, he was my little brother. And we had our, right? That's life, right? We had our, it's hard for me to talk about that. I still view him as my little brother. But it feels hard when you can't express to that person. And I got to give him his space. He was amazing. We did things in martial arts that I have never seen before, and I probably will never see again, because Danny and I trained so much together. We were like in sequence, right? We felt each other moving before it came, right? And people used to look at us, and I swear, they would be like, what? You know, I could see him. We'd be going through the movies. I could see that they were like, oh my God, these guys are going to kill each other. And we weren't. We knew exactly what we were doing.
You trained under Kimo Wall. Did you train under anyone else during your...
Yes, when Kimo Wall and I went our way, a lot of people wanted me to be a part of their system. As a matter of fact, Reiko's son and I were really good friends. Matayoshi came over once and I trained with him at Reiko's house, and he wanted me to go to Okinawa and train with him. But I didn't want, it's not that I didn't want to, I already had family. There's no way I could have done that. And then Masanobu Shinjo, he gave me a 3rd degree when he visited, and he also wanted me to go to Okinawa, where he would give me a 5th right away. But I just couldn't do that. I trained under another teacher that I consider them another of the greats. His understanding of Shorin Ryu and the Bunkais and Kobudo was amazing. His name was Oyakawa Sensei, Roy Oyakawa.
And how long you been teaching?
You're probably the first of the students I started teaching. I've trained a lot before that. After Sensei Wall and I and Steagall went our own, Steagall and I kept training, and then I said, well, you know what, I'm going to try teaching. And right around 23 years ago is actually when I started teaching.
I remember seeing in your garage you had all the weapons.
Yeah.
Was this in Santa Ana too?
It was in Santa Ana, yes, our home in Santa Ana, yeah. And I was teaching there, and I was teaching at the community center. But I've trained, right? I kept training by myself, and I started developing things. This is one of the things that kind of upset me about Kimo Wall. I started developing things right around when I was, after about a year and a half after training. I just started seeing different things, right? And one day he sees me, he says, what are you doing? I go, oh, it's just one of the forms I'm trying to develop. He says, oh, you think you're Miyagi? You think you're better than him? You just start training and you think, you know, and it really upset me. So I left it there. And I stopped doing, but my mind is always going. Most systems might have 30 Kobudo katas. I had 106, 107 in one time. I mean, it was just coming, right? You can't stop your mind from thinking. You can either go crazy and try to stop it, or you can follow it. I followed it. Now I have the 55 forms. I'm sure I will add one or more too. And I've always had 2 or 3 ways of doing one form, right? Some forms I don't even do them for about 10 years, and I forget them. But then the minute I start doing it and repeating and practicing it, it comes back. It's just the way I work, you know? Somebody told me, don't you think that's a bit much? I go, well, I'm sure if I only had 5 katas, my karate would be, my katas would be like, they're not as crisp because I have so much. But to you, 5 katas might be enough. To the other person, 10. The other person, 13. Everybody has a different limit. I can't not do a movement if I see it in my mind, right? If it's there, it's there.
So it would almost come to you in a way, like you trained a lot and then you started, what was the experience? You started just feeling like exploring certain movements and it developed?
No, I'm going to go back and people again are going to go, oh, this guy's crazy. When I was real young, I must have been maybe 3 years old. I lived in Texas, and they had a lot of storms. There was a storm going on. All of a sudden, somebody kicks, they start banging on the front door, and boom, kicks it in. My two older brothers slipped out the window. My sister grabbed the younger sister and her, and they locked themselves in the bathroom. I was on a tricycle. Two people came in. They were angry. They were looking for my older brother. I guess my older brother had gotten into some mischief, and these were some of the neighbors, right? But they were in their 20s. One of them grabs me by the hair. I'm on my back. I'm frozen. I'm scared. He has a sugarcane stalk. Right? And I remember going whoop, 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 like I'm falling down forever. I swear I was falling down, and I could feel it, and I could see the light flash. All of a sudden, I'm gliding over the sky, and I could see the dogs barking, and I could see little huts and little lights. And I land. I start running. I go and I open the sliding door, and people are there training what I know now is karate. I didn't know back then. I didn't know what it was. Now I know it was karate. And they were upset because this was a young man, maybe 12. Go home, don't you know your parents are going to worry? I understood the language, it wasn't English. They were punishing him, so they put him to wash the floor. And he's out there, he says, grabs the floor, and I remember the movements. And he's like really low on the ground, and he's mopping the floor in circles, and he's just this animal, he's just like, and they go, come train. And then all of a sudden, I'm at the doctor's office, and they're pulling these little things out of my head. I guess I went into a coma or something. I don't know what it was. My aunts and my uncles and my sisters, I don't remember, said that after I came back from that, I would be out there doing all kinds of movement. They didn't know what it was. It was back in the 56 in Texas. Nobody knew what it was. Is it possible, I think sometimes, that this happens to more than just one person, right? Could it be that it happened to somebody else? Or maybe not, or maybe, I don't know, but that happened to me. And my sisters and my brothers will tell you, yeah. For a while, after I came back from that, I would be doing all kinds of movements, and they tell me that the neighborhood people would just sit there and watch me for hours just doing what I guess was karate, or back then, I don't know what it was. My mind tends to travel. I can tell you things that happen that are like, and everybody will consider me crazy for it, but the mind does travel. And the more peace you're at, and the more meditative you are, that you meditate, the more your mind is able to, I don't think, I think that connects everybody, is yesterday, today, and tomorrow, all at the same time. So that's why I think I do it. Because I've had some experiences that are really weird, but that's something else. Really weird, huh?
No, I mean, it's very, I mean, that type of stuff interests me. That experience of kind of like a brain trauma, and then you're floating over. I mean, that's experience for people that had near-death experiences or died. There's those reports, they saw themselves looking down.
Yeah, I could hear the dogs bark, looking at me, and I must have been gliding or something. Oh, I don't know. But I also remember touching down when it felt so, because from the gliding to the running experience, it's the same. I think one day people will teach themselves to fly that way. When you swim, and when the creatures swim like whales and fish, it's just a gliding that forces them to go so fast, right? We had a very rough life. My mom left 7 of us, right? My dad raised us after, but when Dad used to go to work and he had 2 jobs, Mom would leave us by ourselves. And one of the things that I was always fascinated is I would sit under a tree or somewhere, and there was humongous clouds in Texas because they had rainstorms. And the movement, just seeing the clouds flow, I would spend hours just watching them. I believe all movement is meditation, even washing your face, right? Or brushing your teeth, right? If you become deeply aware of what's going on, that clears. I got something I've been doing for a while. Sometimes I do it more than others, sometimes I don't. But yeah, I use movement, and I use very simple movement with breathing, and it gets me there, you know? So I guess that was my meditation, but we know, I was the only weird one. Everybody used to think I was weird.
So there's something you do currently with meditation?
Oh yeah, I do some, I call it moving Zen. That's the easiest way of doing it. It's just meditation. I'm not a religious person, but it's well known that whoever Jesus was, he was very spiritual, right? And when you see him in every booklet, what do you see? He's either like that, right? He's like that, or he's like that, right? And the movement is real simple. Is and you don't focus on anything because you don't have to think, you don't have to hold your breath, but it comes, and then and when you do this, you feel this power. When I do this a lot, it's not that I can see the future, but I see certain things that I don't know what they are until they happen.
Anything, I've had experiences where, more with dreams, where I dreamt something and I did experience it either the following day or a few years later. And I've meditated here, and I had an experience where there was somebody that I didn't have a great relationship with. And I had like a good memory with that person during the meditation. I was kind of reminded of a good one. And like 4 or 5 days later, that person reached out to me after a year.
Yeah.
So have you had anything similar to that, whether it was through your training, meditations, anything like that, where something very profound happened?
The earthquake in Mexico.
Which one?
The one they had, that was Mexico City.
In the 80s, right?
I was dreaming things for many nights before, and I go, this has to be Mexico. But the day it happened, I got up and I told my wife, and I told a guy that came to pick me up to go to work, hey, there's going to be a huge earthquake in Mexico. When they had that gas explosion on the truck, remember there was a gas explosion in Mexico in one of the refineries? I saw it before it happened. When there was a group of people that went into space, and including some teachers and some females, I saw it happen before it happened. But I didn't, it's just like sometimes I would be asleep, sometimes I'm just awake, you close your eyes. And when the explosion on that spaceship happened, I swear I felt it, I saw it, the power, everything. I got thrown off the bed. But lately, just a couple of nights ago, it doesn't always happen, right? The more occupied your mind is, the less time you encounter those things, right? But lately I've been talking to my granddaughter because we talk about a lot of things. And I'm pretty sure I visited a place that we haven't seen,
My grandmother, she used to teach her kids when they were really little, as they were going to sleep, how to essentially astral project, like how to fly when you're in your dreams and stuff like that. So anyway, something that I noticed with my own training and with getting into martial arts is there are people that are more like what I would call a hobbyist. They work their job, they do whatever they're doing with their life, and then they train martial arts as a hobby. And it's something that you could still get to a good level if you consistent, you train it over a few years. And then I've noticed, not only with myself, but students that I've had, there's sort of like this obsession that will develop with it. And I think a very good way, like you start to fall in love with it. And when I was 10 years old, I was training here. I loved training the martial arts here. And my instructor was really good because he really imprinted in our minds that there's limitless possibilities.
Right.
And I know it sounds ridiculous, but there was one time that a kid asked him, like sarcastically, he's like, so are you saying that I can fly? And then he told him, he goes, I'm not going to tell you that you can't. So when that kind of really set a precedent for the rest of my training. And as a kid, soon as YouTube started building, I was watching all these videos on martial arts and different styles and movies, everything. So there's this sort of obsession you get where, it's not about being disciplined and training every day or anything. It just ends up being something that's a part of you and that you do all the time.
Yeah.
So that obviously happened with you too, correct? Because my father, the last time I brought you up, my dad just remembered that you trained every day.
Yeah.
And most people will think like, well, how do you get the motivation or the discipline? But it seems like it comes from something else, right?
I don't know. When I was young, I started training, I could not train. I had to have it every day. Even now, I don't physically train, but sometimes I'm driving and I'm thinking about a form, right? And it's going through my mind, right? Or a specific training, or I see something and I want to see what that person is experiencing. Yeah, it's a daily thing for me. It's there.
And you still physically move around and train and practice?
Oh yeah, I have a lot of injuries, mostly from basketball and from my hard work. I worked very young very young when I was a child, and I think I always overdid things, but I still train. I can't train like I used to, but for even 2 seconds of the old feeling is better than none, right? Because there's a certain feeling that gets when you get something right?
Yeah, and you're still teaching too, right?
Yes, I do.
The only memories I had were those pictures I showed you.
Right.
I remember a little bit for sure. Now, all these years later, martial arts is my life. When I look at those photos, there was something I couldn't get past. I would see you have kind of like that traditional look and karate pose. You had these like sandals on.
Yeah.
I'm going through all these old photos, scanning them just from my house. And I see that there's like a whole album of ones when we were just doing karate with you. And there was just this look in your face and on your posture. I'm like, there's a little bit more to this. I think this was more than just 5-year-old kid taking karate at a community center. Like, I feel like this instructor, there's more to it. Legit was the only word that I could think of. I had brought you up with my dad and my parents just asking, and just randomly. My mom told me that your name was Juan, but with an X.
Yeah.
I was able to connect with you. But you're still teaching after all these years. Like, what is it about it that you really enjoy?
Well, there's been a lot of times where I say, well, is this it? Should I hang it up? Don't get a lot of traffic, don't get a lot of people interested. But for right now, even if I was to quit teaching, I will continue training, right? But I can't not teach the kids that are, because you don't get a lot of young kids dedicated to the art nowadays, but how can I take it away from those who are, right? As long as they're dedicated and they want to learn, I'm going to be there. I'm hoping one of them grows into being a good teacher too, right?
I did want to just one more time hear your bobcat story.
Cougar or bobcat.
Cougar,
it wasn't
whatever.
A bobcat. It was a big,
was it a
mountain lion or whatever it was. I was hitchhiking in Silverado, and I was using one of my bows as a walking stick, and I kept walking and I kept feeling something behind me and I wasn't sure, right? And I kept walking and looking behind me and I swear I could hear rustling, the leaves and kept walking. All of a sudden I hear this, it's coming at me full force. I mean, it's coming really fast and I'm glad I had that bow. Because I've been doing bow for a while. And I did realize that this kind of movement is a lot slower than just stabbing. So, boom, I started stabbing at this lion. Hard, right into the face. And he kept, and moving around. And I kept, boom, boom. And I'm sure I got it in the nose once. And I did get close to the eyes and to the mouth. And it took off. But I did get very scared. There's so much power to these animals. And when you feel them, it's like, they're like sand throwing, dirt flying all over the places. It's, what I mean. And
So it was like ready to attack, like pounce on you.
Oh, yeah. I don't know why. The only thing I can think is, I don't know. Because I don't think they would normally attack unless they're protecting something. Maybe another, I don't know. I never saw it. It happened quick. But it seemed like forever.
For anyone that's fell in love with martial arts like we have, what would you have to say to them? If you could give them any message to somebody that really loves it and wants to do it their whole life.
Get out of those schools who say this is the only way. Go explore. Remember, Oyakawa told me, because at 80-something years old, when he was training with me, I had never shown him. When he saw what I was doing, he told me, he started training what I was doing. And he told me, don't ever stop. He used to call me JJ-san, because my name is actually Juan with a J and Jose with a J. So he used to call me JJ-san, he says. And I told him why I had stopped and everything, and what the thing that went between me and Kimo Wall. And then he told me, if Miyagi was here, if Taira was here, if they were alive, and they knew of you, this is where they would be. He says, don't ever stop. I want to learn. I feel so. He felt bad that he wasn't younger so he could train with me. And it happened only because I kept going with my own things, right? I never let them go. But if you listen to those schools and say, this is the only way, or maybe it's the only way for them, but not for everybody. He told me, Miyagi, didn't he go to China? Why? He wanted to improve. He wanted more. All these great masters that went to, that's what we're all doing. Yeah.
Well, thank you for the interview.
Yeah,
it was
you're
good.
welcome.
And it's
You're
good
welcome.
to see you again, and I'm sure we're going to do much more in the future.
Yeah.
But
Good.
yeah, thank you. So I was lucky enough today to do a little bit of training, but also an interview with Sensei Benavides. Reunited after 20-something years.
20-something years.
Yeah, so it means a lot that you were able to come here. And this is where I got my black belt. This is a very meaningful place. So to be able to bring you here, interview you is good. And I extend the invitation if you want to document some of your forms, movements, and teachings. We can do that, use the space here, or if you would like the space over there that you're at, and we could coordinate that. But I appreciate everything. Yeah. So,
well, thank you. I really enjoy it. I would like to maybe come and document some more stuff here, but if you want to train, because I'm always busy, you're welcome to come train when we train weapons if you want to learn more.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.